I sat at that kitchen table staring at the court letter for what felt like hours. My hands were trembling so hard the paper shook. I finally forced myself to read every word. And there it was, the verdict. The judge had ruled in my favor. For a moment, I couldn't believe it. My knees went weak, tears spilled down my face, and I clutched the letter to my chest like it was oxygen. After months of fighting, after losing once already, I had been given another chance. But the ruling came with conditions. I would regain custody of Daniel, but I had to prove stability, regular therapy sessions, documented income, and scheduled home visits from social workers. It wasn't freedom. It was probation as a mother. Still, it was a victory. My baby was coming home. When I told Daniel, his face lit up brighter than the sun. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe and whispered, "Mommy, I knew you'd come for me." That moment should have healed me. It should have erased the months of pain. But even in the middle of my joy, I felt a shadow. Because Margaret didn't look defeated. She didn't cry or protest. She just sat there, stone-faced, like a woman who hadn't lost it all. And deep down, I knew why. This wasn't the end of the battle. It was only the beginning of another one. What I didn't know then was that Margaret had her own plan, and she wasn't about to let go of Daniel without a fight. Bringing Daniel home should have been the happiest day of my life. And in some ways, it was. I cooked his favorite meal, spaghetti with too much cheese. We stayed up late building Lego castles, laughing until our sides hurt. For the first time in months, I tucked him into his own bed, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You're home, baby. You're finally home." But happiness came with a cost. The court had placed me under a microscope. Social workers dropped by unannounced, checking if my apartment was tidy, if food was in the fridge, if Daniel had clean clothes stacked neatly in drawers. Every paycheck had to be documented, every therapy session signed off, every box on their clipboard ticked. I didn't mind the accountability, I had nothing to hide, but the pressure was suffocating. One mistake, one missed appointment, and I could lose him again. And Margaret knew it. She would show up at my door uninvited, claiming she just wanted to see Daniel. She'd bring gifts, expensive sneakers, a new tablet, bags of clothes, and every time, Daniel's eyes lit up. I wanted to slam the door, but what kind of mother denies her child love from his grandmother? Still, her visits always ended the same. She'd stand at my doorway, glance around my apartment, and say something like, "You're doing well, for now." It was a reminder, she was watching me. Waiting. I tried to keep Daniel shielded from it, but children are sharp. One night as I tucked him in, he whispered, "Mommy, are you and Grandma fighting?" I forced a smile. "No, baby. We just both love you very much." But inside, I was terrified. Because love wasn't what this felt like. It felt like war. And listen, if you've ever felt like you're fighting battles no one sees, if you've ever had to prove yourself over and over just to keep what's yours, then stay with me. And please, subscribe right now. Because what happened next nearly broke me, and I want you to hear it all. The cracks began to show slowly. One day, Daniel came home from a visit and said, "Grandma says I might come live with her again if you get tired." My chest clenched. I told him, firmly, "No, sweetheart. You're home with me. You belong here." But I saw the confusion in his eyes. Another time, I got a call from his school. Margaret had shown up, trying to pick him up early, claiming she still had partial custody. The school turned her away, but I knew this wasn't over. And it wasn't. Because one afternoon, I came home from work to find a letter slipped under my door. Another filing. Margaret was petitioning for custody again, this time armed with claims that I had violated court conditions. My hand shook as I held the paper. My throat went dry. I thought the nightmare was over, but it had only taken a new form. What Margaret did next crossed a line I never thought she would, and it forced Daniel himself into the middle of the war. When I saw that new filing slip under my door, my heart sank. I thought maybe it was another bluff, another attempt to rattle me. But this was real. Margaret wasn't giving up. Her lawyer accused me of breaking court conditions, saying I'd missed therapy sessions, failed to maintain steady income, even neglected Daniel's health. Lies, every single one of them. But lies, once written in legal language, gain weight. I scrambled to prove my compliance, pay stubs, signed attendance from therapy, Daniel's medical records. My lawyer assured me we had the evidence. But I knew Margaret's strength wasn't just in paperwork. It was in the way she twisted the story, in how she made people believe she was the safer choice. And then she crossed a line I never thought she would. She started feeding Daniel her version of the truth. He came home one night and said, "Grandma says you might lose me again because you don't follow the rules." I froze. My stomach dropped. I knelt down, held his face, and said, "Baby, don't you ever believe that. Mommy is doing everything for you. You're not going anywhere." But I could see it, the seed of doubt she had planted. And that seed grew. The next time in court, Margaret's lawyer called Daniel to speak again. I wanted to object, to scream that he was just a child. But the judge allowed it. He sat there, small and nervous, swinging his legs like before. And when they asked him where he felt most safe, his little voice shook. "At Grandma's house, sometimes." That word, sometimes, split me open. My lawyer asked, "Daniel, do you love your mommy?" He nodded quickly. "Yes. I love mommy." But then came the question that changed everything. "Daniel, if you could choose, who would you live with?" The silence was unbearable. My chest tightened. My throat burned. And then, he whispered words that made my world tilt. "I don't know, maybe both?" The courtroom murmured. My vision blurred. Tears burned my eyes. He didn't mean to hurt me, he was just a child, torn in two. But those words were dynamite in Margaret's hands. I left the stand that day shattered. Because I realized something, this fight wasn't just between me and Margaret anymore. She had pulled Daniel into the war, and no matter what the court decided, the scars were already etched into his little heart. That night, as I tucked him in, he clung to me and said, "Mommy, I don't want you and Grandma to fight anymore. I just want us to be happy." I broke down. Quietly, so he wouldn't see. Because how do you explain to a child that sometimes, the people who love you most are the ones tearing you apart? And as I kissed his forehead, I knew something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't about custody anymore. It wasn't about courtrooms or rulings. It was about survival, mine, his, and the fragile bond that tied us together. The final ruling came down weeks later. And what it said didn't just determine where Daniel would live, it redefined what the word mother even meant in my life. The envelope came on a gray morning, just like the first one. Thin. Ordinary. Yet it held the weight of my entire world. I sat at the kitchen table, Daniel's drawings taped to the wall behind me, and forced my hands to stop shaking long enough to open it. The ruling was clear, custody remained with me. For a moment, I sobbed into my hands. Relief washed over me, heavy and trembling, like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale. My baby was mine. But as I read on, my tears blurred. Because the ruling didn't declare me fit. It declared me sufficient under supervision. Margaret was granted extensive visitation. The court emphasized shared responsibility. In other words, they didn't trust me fully. And that cut deeper than any loss. Because yes, I had my son home. But the system, the court, even part of my own family, they all saw me as something less than enough. That night, as Daniel lay asleep beside me, I watched his chest rise and fall. I brushed his hair back and whispered, "I'll never stop fighting for you. Even if it breaks me. Even if they never believe in me. I'll never stop." This fight changed me. It showed me how love can be tested, how family can fracture, how the system can strip you bare. But it also showed me a strength I didn't know I had. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Maybe more battles. maybe peace. But I do know this, being a mother isn't about court papers or judges' stamps. It's about showing up every single day, even when the world doubts you. And that's what I'll keep doing. For him. For us. So tell me, was justice served? Or was this just another story of a mother fighting a system stacked against her? If you followed my journey this far, I want to hear from you. Comment below what you think. Should custody battles like mine even allow grandparents to sue? And don't forget to hit subscribe, because I'll be sharing more real stories that prove truth is sometimes stranger and harder than fiction.